You're a high-performing man, and yet you find yourself in a situation where you're stuck, lacking motivation or drive, or you find yourself in overwhelm. You're also falling short of the success that you know you're capable of. If this is you, listen in, because what I'll share in this video has the potential to set you on an entirely new life trajectory, one that perhaps you might never have considered possible for yourself. And if you're a middle-aged man like me, you can once again have the renewed motivation and inspiration knowing that the best years are still in front of you. The most pivotal thing I'm going to share is the importance of shifting your identity, because ultimately it's your identity that determines your life trajectory and the life outcomes that you experience. So by the end of this video, you'll have clarity on the 3 most important foundations to shifting your identity and the actions that you can take to advance yourself down this path. If this is the first video that you've watched of mine, hi, I'm Nathan Wakeford. I'm a master NLP practitioner, a masculinity coach, and a 7-figure entrepreneur. And I've coached hundreds of men to achieve greater success in their health, relationships, and finances. Around 19 years ago, I went through a series of successive life events that would dramatically alter the trajectory of my life. My mother passed away at an early age. I went through a spiritual awakening, and I did my first masculinity rite of passage, which was a shamanic weekend that exposed me to the unknown and the potentialities that I could shift my experience of life as a man. These events ultimately led me down a path of self-reflection, self-awareness, and healing that gave me the awareness that I could begin to craft myself and develop myself as a man. And so I built myself from a bullied nerd in a small country town into developing a multinational, multi-million dollar business, traveling to over 40 countries, running multiple marathons, becoming highly successful with women, and exiting from that company to start a legacy project in the tropical paradise of Tulum. In this video, I'm going to share with you the system that I discovered as I led myself out of a situation where I was experiencing overwhelm, stress, lacking motivation, or even clarity on what steps to take, because what I was doing in the past was no longer working. And in a very short period of time, I was able to bring myself back into clarity, momentum, and ultimately experience a new heightened trajectory that I hadn't even considered was possible for me. I started to see life through the lens of potentiality, from this new awakened identity where my life took on new meaning. See, my life had almost been on an autopilot before. I'd achieved so much success already, and I honestly didn't consider at that time just how much my life could change. And I'm not talking about just theory. I'm going to be sharing with you my genuine and real life experience. I was able to go from feeling lethargic, seemingly feeling like my life was in decline, that I'd become old all of a sudden, becoming the heaviest that I've ever been, 102 kilograms, and ultimately lacking motivation and inspiration in life, to then becoming the fittest and the strongest that I've ever been, waking up with discipline and conviction and renewed vigor. My identity completely transformed, and I went from feeling that the world was stacking up on top of me, I was feeling overwhelmed, to breaking through into this new identity where things just started to become easy again, where things started to flow. And I was able to generate $350,000 in a matter of 12 weeks, where prior, my hard work was fruitless. I was working long hours and seemingly going nowhere. Now I want to stress that my results are extraordinary. They're not typical, but I took extraordinary action, and I am here to tell you that it is possible for you if you're willing to commit and take extraordinary action also. So through this renaissance, through this new awakening of my identity, I came to the awareness that I had discovered or unlocked a wisdom. It's a wisdom that I now refer to as masculine identity optimization. The 3 most important elements of which are subconscious transformation to bring your subconscious mind into alignment with your divinely inspired outcomes. Disciplined self-care with the support of a brotherhood that cultivates a strong masculine frame where you establish self-respect, integrity, and an internal frame of reference where you begin to create life with intention and on your terms. And connecting towards your deeper why, your purpose. See, after you've gone through a dissolution in some way, once you've reached the ceilings of your identity, many aspects of yourself are going to dissolve and fall away. And you get to choose who you become after that. And that must be guided by a compelling why, something that inspires you and motivates you to reach further than you ever have before. With these 3 elements, any man can craft himself to become extraordinary. Because I firmly believe and have experienced myself that men are made. So it's just a matter of who you choose yourself to become and then diligently work towards becoming that. So if you're feeling stuck, if you're lacking discipline, motivation, or a deeper fulfillment in life, listen in, because I'm going to share with you how you can apply these 3 principles to completely transform your life and set it on a new empowered trajectory. It really can change everything for you. All you need to do is watch this video through to the end and then follow the directions that I give you. Now, it doesn't matter if your desire is building a fulfilling legacy, finding renewed purpose, getting in the best shape of your life, reigniting the passion in your relationships, or attracting a new partner. Whether it's becoming a better father for your children, being surrounded by high-valued men who empower you in your life trajectory, or if it's to claim more authority, self-respect, and status, or simply having the inspired peace and confidence, knowing that you can create life entirely on your terms. Whatever your ambition is, you need an identity that aligns with experiencing those outcomes and the right strategy to make those outcomes inevitable. I'm about to share with you the core wisdom that will enable you to accomplish any outcome that you put your mind to. And the best part is, you're likely to experience far-reaching benefits beyond the scope of what I'm sharing here. Why? Because you'll be crafting yourself into an extraordinary man who creates extraordinary experiences limited only by your imagination. I'll be giving you the clarity for the first steps that you can take to begin unlocking your fullest potential. I've achieved a great deal of success in my life, but that wasn't always the case. You see, I started off as a shy nerd in a small country town where I experienced extensive bullying, where I was a chubby little kid that was a loner walking around the schoolyard by himself. And I lacked the confidence really to stand out and be seen. I didn't even smile in family photos. And I didn't realize until later that the hardship that I went through as a kid carried over in unexpected ways into my adult life. Despite having accomplished significant financial success, being able to attract beautiful women, building this multinational business, deep down, something wasn't complete and strong within me. I had what I now call a false frame of masculinity. You see, despite all of this success, deep down, I didn't really believe that I was a successful man. Deep down, I didn't really command the respect of other people, especially with women, because I was still seeking approval and attention, the approval and attention that the little boy in me never got as a kid. I went through some significant life events that at the time felt like my world was crumbling down. So I went from the heightened state of being engaged, exiting from my company, to finding myself in a situation where I went through a separation, I had a failed business venture, I started lacking energy, drive, and inspiration. I started putting on weight. I started to feel as if I was accumulating injuries that I wasn't recovering from. And I had a general sense of a lack of motivation or meaning in anything that I was doing. And as I was going through this process, a lot of the projects that I was working on came to a grinding halt, including my legacy project. So I had this false identity built on the successful entrepreneur that prided himself on his success, on his ability to influence others, on his charisma. And yet here I found myself feeling like a phony, because whilst I had all these assets still built up, the cash flow in my project had dried up and the momentum in every aspect of my life had grinded to a halt. I felt lonely, I didn't feel so inspired, and yet it seemed that whatever I would try to resolve the circumstances of my situation failed to accomplish anything. And I even began to question whether it was because I was now 46 years old that my life was going to decline, as I'd seen as a child in my parents and family friends. I generally began to think that maybe my life was going to go downhill from here. And I knew there was a lesson to be learned, but I couldn't for the life of me think, what am I missing? Ultimately, everything around me started to dissolve to a point where I stopped doing the things that I knew that I should be doing. I started to feel shame that I wasn't making progress. And I started to fall short on the commitments and the promises that I'd made to the people around me. Now, what I recognized was that I had come to the limits of my identity and the outer world experiences that was reflective of that identity. And fortunately, I have a pretty hefty toolkit of NLP resources to shift my mindset. What I recognized was that I needed to connect with a new why, a new purpose, and ultimately choose a new identity as a foundation to build my future life trajectory on. So I began to reprogram my subconscious mind, and I was able to take on some new information that helped me to develop a new masculine identity, a new frame of authority that gave me clarity and focus, discipline, and consistent right action. I remembered the importance of being surrounded by a positive and inspiring brotherhood. And I began to show up for myself with disciplined self-care. And it was through that integrity with myself that I began to uplift myself, reclaim confidence, and gain momentum again. It was in this process of shifting my identity to this new empowered trajectory. That I recognized I had a wisdom now and a system that would be supportive of men going through their midlife crisis. And at the same time, where I had found myself in a place of feeling alone and ashamed, I started to attract men around me that I invited on the journey with me. And what I realized is that the process and the system that I was putting myself through, when I shared it with men around me, they started to experience dramatic positive changes in their lives as well. Their relationships changed, their health changed, their confidence changed, their dominance and assertiveness changed. And it was all for the better. And as I went through this process, in the past where I'd tried to achieve success by myself, I recognized the importance of my brothers to hold me to this new higher standard, to call me forward, and ultimately for me to see what might be possible, sometimes through the witnessing of men that were younger than me, as examples of who I might wish to craft myself to become. As I had this new awareness of this potentiality that was unfolding, this stirring started to happen within me of this new passion and vigor for masculinity and supporting men to become extraordinary. I started to recognize and see myself as a guide who could support men on this newer, higher potentiality of masculinity, especially in the context of today's society, where masculinity is often shamed, diminished, and reduced to something that is no longer relevant. And what I saw for myself is as I stepped into this new empowered masculinity, as I was able to redirect my life, as I found this deeper purpose for my existence, I also recognized that from the change within me, I was going to be in a much better position to serve society and to create a life of meaning that would benefit many people around me. Through the adversity of everything that I'd gone through, I now understood that that suffering was essential to developing myself as a man, because my suffering immediately had meaning. And all the points in my life, all the life lessons, the experience of my entrepreneurial journey, my spiritual awakening after my mother's death, my NLP skills, the various ways that I developed myself physically, all converged for this deeper reason and purpose for my life. And that was to restore the honor in masculinity and recognize that I had unwittingly fallen into a frame pushed on me by society and my life experiences to think that who I was as a man was inconsequential. And so what this gave me was a deep meaning and a deep reason to share my gifts and to raise up the men around me. Once I began to feel the shift within myself, that gave me inspiration again. And I really went all in on this new trajectory of developing my masculine frame. I started to get up before 5 a.m. I started daily meditation, daily breath work. I started to optimize my testosterone levels. I continued to reprogram my subconscious mind. I started to surround myself with a community of men that are on the same path as me to really get the most out of life and live up to our fullest potential. Because now where I had felt this diminishing trajectory of my life, I was now inspired by the fact that I hadn't reached my end. I just started a new beginning. In effect, what I realized what I was doing was working on my masculine frame of authority and having an internal frame of reference, and then having the disciplined consistency of rituals for self-care and focused alignment of my actions towards my desired outcomes. And I had aligned my subconscious with my desired outcomes using the skills that I had to reprogram my subconscious mind. And once I did that, I literally went from feeling that despair and overwhelm and feeling that I didn't have the resources within myself to make a difference, that anything that I was trying wasn't working, to starting to see things become completed, starting to see the momentum be restored, starting to see opportunities open up in front of me. And I was seeing life from a higher perspective and possibility for myself in where my life was now taking me. All the destruction that had been happening now had been put in the context of a transition from the old identity into a new one that was sending me on this new empowered trajectory. So up until that moment of breakthrough, I had been making excuses, I had been feeling deflated, I had been playing the victim in a way, and I didn't have conviction towards a clear outcome. Ultimately, just hoping something would change, but not knowing what I was going to be doing. But I really didn't know what would move me beyond the ceiling that I now felt myself bumping up again. And now I know, of course, I was showing up still in my old identity, and I didn't have a clear idea of what was necessary for me in this new identity that would create a more fulfilling experience of life. Now, if you listen to this and you identify with any part of my story, know that you don't have to perpetuate your own suffering. I have a way out for you. Your breakdown can be your breakthrough, just like it was for me. The dissolution of your old identity can make way for the new. My system for masculine identity optimization absolutely works. And so you just really need to make the choice of, do you want to go through the time, effort, and heartache of not having clarity of how to get yourself through this process and go through all the learning lessons that I did, or you can save yourself a whole heap of time and heartache by following the steps that I can clearly articulate and lay out in front of you. And the thing that I want to emphasize here is we don't know what we don't know in terms of the shadows contained within our subconscious. So to give you one example, I worked with a man who's one of the most connected men that I've ever met, working on a 9-figure deal currently with global world leaders and the top 1% or even 0.1% of the entertainment industry. He had a series of huge deals that seemed to fall through at the last minute. And he generated $200,000 after my first intervention. And then he started to see how his childhood experiences were preventing him from experiencing the success that he was now working towards and why his deals kept falling through. So I want to emphasize that you can fill your head with information, but if you do not bring your subconscious into alignment with your desired outcomes, you will find a way to sabotage them. If you do not shift your identity to that which will allow in these desires, you're going to keep butting your head against the ceiling of your current identity. You need to dissolve the old and have a clear trajectory towards forming the new. And another client of mine, who was one of Anthony Robbins' top coaches, who's worked with hundreds of coaches, found himself in a position, having generated millions before, 8 coaches working underneath him, to now seeing the same thing. The things that had worked in the past were no longer working for him. His relationship was being challenged. And I was able to show him where he needed to develop his masculine frame and how his current identity did not have the authority to take charge of his own life. So much of his life was now devolving that he was no longer the captain of his own ship. Life seemed to be happening to him rather than through him. He said that I was in the top 3 of any coach that he's ever worked with in my ability to specifically pinpoint the subconscious blocks and limitations and create a transformation at the subconscious level that created instantaneous results. He now found himself once again in a place of empowerment, focus, clarity, and momentum. So these were highly successful men, also aware of the power of coaching, and yet they still found themselves at an impasse. And why is that the case? The subconscious mind preserves the current identity, even if it's limiting, because it thinks that it's giving you more life, and it doesn't care about quality of life. So we need a coach. We need someone experienced and talented in subconscious programming that isn't us, that can see our subconscious limitations and provide a solution. Save yourself the heartache and jump into a 15-minute coffee chat with me. In that session, I'll be utilizing my unique ability to really pinpoint the traumas and limitations of your old identity and at least give you the clarity of how to resolve them, because I'm genuinely a master of subconscious transformation. And I utilize skill sets from my holographic NLP, family constellations, and numerous somatic transformative processes to guide you into this new identity. And I help you to formulate and give you clarity and direction of this new person that you're going to choose to become. And then it's up to you. You can make the decision of whether you want to continue this path yourself, or you can continue under the guidance and tutorage of someone who has both the experience of going through that process himself personally, as well as the skill set to accelerate you along your own path. So if this is something that stirs a new potential, a new possibility, I encourage you to act on that conviction. Click on the link below and schedule a 15-minute coffee chat with me. As a minimum, you'll leave with clarity and at least the steps you can take. And you might just let go of the old, unserving and limiting identity and make way for a new, empowering one. You make the choice. I look forward to seeing you inside the call.